After 6 years, she appeared, limping from the dusk, old, scarred, and silent. The lioness he once saved now lay at his feet, not to rest, but to die. What happened next will shock even those who thought they'd seen everything. But first, let's go back to the beginning. Jacob never asked for more than the quiet. After 12 years of sand, sirens, and the smell of burnt rubber mixed with blood, silence was sacred. He guarded it like a soldier guards a perimeter. But the lioness disrupted that, slowly, without sound, without breaking the silence, but not without weight. She was a presence, not a noise. And her presence unsettled the equilibrium he'd built from wreckage. The first time he saw her, she was barely a silhouette against the rust-colored ridge, framed by dusk and distance. She didn't blink, just stood there, like something carved from old bone and breath. Jacob kept his distance. He'd learned enough in war to know you don't rush the thing that's watching you. You study it back, let it make the first move. The sanctuary staff had mentioned wild strays. Usually they passed through, never lingered, but she lingered. Always at the same spot, where the brush gave way to flat stone, where the fence dipped slightly under the weight of years. There was something purposeful in how she stayed. Not hunger, not curiosity, intent. Her eyes unnerved him, not because they were cold, but because they weren't. They held something older than fear, an intelligence he couldn't dismiss, a question he couldn't hear but felt all the same. And every day she came closer, not in leaps, not in strides, inches. She moved like a clock hand, subtle, exact, inevitable. Jacob began leaving raw meat near the fence. Not every day, only when she stayed long enough to deserve it. It became ritual. Leave the food, back away, don't watch her eat, never make her feel watched. She ate like a ghost, silent, without tearing, without haste, always looking up between bites. Not afraid, just cautious, as if she remembered something the world had forgotten. He named her Eden not because she was paradise, but because she made everything else quiet by comparison, even his thoughts. When she was there, the nightmares stopped clawing at the edges. The war didn't vanish. It just waited its turn. Once, he watched her nap in the sun just beyond the outer fence. Her body slack, paw twitching like a dog dreaming. Vulnerable. He realized then how rare that was, for either of them, to be seen unguarded, and even rarer to allow it. She never crossed the line, and he never asked her to. The man they brought in wore tailored denim, desert boots that had never touched dust, and a corporate badge clipped too neatly to his collar. Tyler Lansing, 32, Harvard Business School. His handshake was dry, his smile practiced, and his questions all began with ROI. Return on investment. Wildlife to him was just engagement potential. Jacob knew the type. Slick, hollow men who'd never had to bleed for anything they claimed to protect. The sanctuary changed overnight. Signs went up. Fences were polished. Drones buzzed where eagles used to glide undisturbed. Staff who once tracked wildlife patterns now spent their mornings briefing photographers. Animal behavior wasn't observed anymore. It was framed. Lansing used words like productization, user journey, predictive content scheduling. He wanted lions to appear at 9:00 a.m. sharp, not drift in at the whim of instinct. Nature was now a schedule. Jacob stayed quiet until Eden came up in a strategy meeting. Lansing referred to her as that ghost lion, then laughed when someone suggested she could be leveraged for branding. The queen of the borderlands. He said it like a marketing pitch. Jacob stared at him across the table, unmoving. "She doesn't belong to you," he said flatly. "Nothing here does," Lansing replied. "That's the point." From then on, they avoided speaking to each other directly. But things moved quickly behind closed doors. New trackers were ordered. Sedatives. Custom collars. No one told Jacob when the baited trap was laid outside the eastern perimeter, just far enough beyond the sanctuary boundary to avoid regulatory paperwork, just close enough for Eden to smell it. When she didn't appear that morning, he knew. By the third day, he was combing the brush line on foot. Every rock, every bent branch. He found a strip of fabric clinging to a metal post, smeared in red and coated with the artificial scent they used in training labs. Then, behind the vet's cabin, the net, coiled, blood-specked, and reeking of tranquilizer. Nearby, a discarded ID tag stamped with one sterile designation. L009. She had a name. He'd given it to her, but they gave her a number. No one answered his questions. Some played dumb. Others avoided his eyes altogether. Weeks passed. He reviewed security footage from every corner of the grounds until he found the one they hadn't deleted, stored under a mislabeled date. The frame was static at first, then chaos. Eden staggering, trapped, roaring once, only once, before collapsing mid-thrash. They darted her twice. She fought longer than she should have been able to. Jacob watched the video without blinking. Then he downloaded it, deleted the record, and walked out. He had tracked ghosts through sandstorms. He had followed blood trails that led to men who vanished beneath mountains. Now he would follow one lion, and he would not stop. The house was built to impress the wrong kind of people. Columns that didn't hold anything, gold trim that peeled under heat, and a fiberglass waterfall in the foyer that murmured nonsense into the stale Texan air. The private zoo out back was more soundstage than sanctuary. Jungle vines made of rope, rock formations sculpted in resin, speakers hidden in trees to blast pre-recorded roars. A carnival of artificial wildness for drunk donors, TikTok influencers, and desperate rich men who needed something primal to decorate their hollowness. Jacob waited until the staff were gone, past midnight, when the heat died and the lights dimmed into purple party hues. He parked a quarter-mile out near a dry creek bed and moved like he had a decade ago in Fallujah. No radio, no flashlight. Just the tools, bolt cutters, tranquilizer meat, and a collar knife wrapped in tape. No gun. He wasn't here to kill anyone, not unless they tried to stop him. The first lion he saw wasn't her. Wrong gait, wrong eyes. Too young. The enclosure was split in 3, and the one at the far end. That one was chained, belly pressed to synthetic grass, head low, muzzle scarred by steel. Her ribs moved shallowly. Her tail was still. Then he saw the tag, L009. She didn't move when he stepped forward, just lifted her eyes, glassier than he remembered, dulled with overuse of tranquilizers and trauma. He said her name once, quiet, then again a little firmer. Her ears flicked. She blinked, her head tilted, like a photograph trying to recognize itself in the mirror. He knelt and held out the meat. No growl, no snarl, just a pause. 1 breath, 2, and then she leaned forward and took it from his hand with a gentleness that broke him in places he thought were already rubble. The sedative took hold fast, mercifully. As she staggered, her eyes met his once more, really met his, and she released a low, broken sound that hit deeper than any scream he'd heard in war. Getting her out took 13 minutes and all of his strength. He didn't speak, didn't hesitate, just lifted her into the reinforced truck bed, strapped her down with blankets and belts, and drove north until his knuckles went white. By dawn, the ridge appeared, raw, golden, untouched. The place where she used to watch the world from a distance. The place they both remembered, even if they never spoke of it. He laid her down on soft grass and waited. When she stirred, She didn't run. He didn't stay to watch her heal. He stayed just long enough to know she had a chance. Then he vanished into the mountains, like a man erasing his own footprints. The call came through a ranger named Hayes. Young voice, unsure. He said it like he wasn't sure anyone would answer. Jacob almost didn't. The burner phone had rung before. Wrong numbers, spam, one truck stop job that wanted him to clean oil tanks. But Hayes didn't ask for work. He asked if Jacob Harris had ever known a lion, a specific one. Female, scarred, old now, maybe dying. One that kept returning to the same ridge every week, sometimes just sitting, sometimes lying there for hours, eyes on the trees. Never hunting, never eating the bait they left out. Just waiting. Jacob didn't say much. He just hung up, packed a single bag, and drove. The roads back to Prescott hadn't changed. The sanctuary was still gated, but it gleamed now. Slick new signs, branding, kiosks. The dirt roads beyond it, though, remained cracked and sun-bleached, the desert wind moving over them like breath through an old lung. He parked where he used to. The same rusted cattle grate, the same fence line. Time hadn't fixed the bent post where Eden used to perch like a statue, just outside the wire. He didn't bring food. He didn't call her name. He knew better. She'd come if she was still herself. He sat where he used to sit, elbows on knees, hands clasped. His joints protested more than they used to, but he didn't shift. The desert didn't like movement. It respected stillness. The sun dropped inch by inch behind the ridge. Shadows lengthened like reaching hands. An hour passed. 2. He stayed. And then, movement. Not loud, not sudden, just a shape breaking the horizon with the weight of inevitability. She came limping through the dust, ribs rising slow beneath thin skin, her tail barely swaying. Her mane had grown coarse, patchy. Her coat, once honey gold, had faded to ash. But her eyes, the same impossible eyes, still held that quiet, knowing intensity. The same recognition, the same question. She stopped a foot from him. No sound, no tension, just breath between them. Then she lay down. Not like an animal bedding down for sleep, like something surrendering. He didn't speak, didn't cry, just sat beside her, resting a hand on her shoulder, feeling the thud of her heart grow slower with each breath. When the last one came, it came gently, like a candle bowing to the dark. He buried her at sunrise, beneath the ridge where she used to wait. No ceremony, just hands in the dirt and a single flat stone pressed deep into the earth. He etched it with a pocket knife that had once opened MREs in the Middle East. 3 words. No more. No less. She waited anyway. And when he stood up, the world felt smaller, because the only thing that had ever truly waited for him was gone.